I am doing this video about DNA studies that I have done for the Red family. And so I hope you will enjoy this presentation. Hopefully a lot of this stuff makes sense. I know some of it may go over your head initially, but I'll try to make it as plain as possible. So a video of this presentation will be available later after the reading. So I ask that if there's anything that you don't understand to go back and watch this video. So let me start with a PowerPoint presentation. So in this PowerPoint presentation, I'm taking some of the PowerPoint slides that I used in the 2015 presentation. I will not be going over my whole 2015 presentation. I'll be going over it rather quickly. But if you want to watch those videos of the 2015, I will provide that in this presentation. And we'll make sure those links are available on the Red Family web page sometime so you could review those. So here's a picture of 4 of the children of John Harrison Red that we have pictures of. We don't have pictures of some of the kids that died at an early age, but we have Anne Mariah Red, Lemuel Harrison, Benjamin Jones, and Mary Red, who was his daughter by his second wife, by John Harrison Red's second wife, Mary Lewis. And over this picture on the right is Marvin Rudd family and Emily Lauritsen, who's our Red cousin right here, and with her daughter. And Marvin Rudd and his family would play an important part of how we were able to establish this Red-Rudd connection. Now you may ask yourself, why is there a connection between the Red and Rudd family? And what happened to the surname? Did it change over time or what? I won't explain exactly what caused that name change, but I will show through DNA quickly how we are connected. So let me move forward on this presentation. A little introduction on myself. My name is Thomas Nelson Marion Brown. I like to go by Tom. I'm a great third great grandson of John Harrison Red, who had a son named Lemuel H. Red Sr., and he had a son named Benjamin F. Red Sr. My grandfather was Benjamin F. Red Jr., and my mother is Cecilia Red, who married my father, Nelson Brown. I was born and raised in Ogden, Utah. After graduating from high school from there, I went to Utah State University and I obtained my degree in civil engineering in 2003. I've been a professional civil engineer since 2009. And as you may notice, genealogy is my main hobby and has been for quite some time. Let's move forward. So there's a lot of DNA tests out there. And one of the main ones I want to talk about is Y-DNA. Now, granted, in high school, I received a basic, I've been taught basically about a few things about genetics when I was in high school. And I had human biology, so I kind of knew how DNA worked, but not exactly until much later. And how powerful a tool that would end up being in solving family mysteries. And so I don't have any professional education or training on this, but I've been spending the last 16 years studying it, and I've learned quite a bit. Y-DNA is DNA found on the Y chromosome that is only passed down through the male descendants, so from father to son. Y-DNA consists of many markers that are officially known as short tandem repeaters, or STRs. And STRs are short DNA patterns repeated in tandem. For example, if you have an ATGC, which are the letters for all the different components of DNA, if you have ATGC nucleic acid combos that are repeated 11 times, that would give you the marker of value of 11. And I don't expect you to remember that or understand, what all these nucleic acid combos and their repetition mean. But those marker values are very important because that's how we compare our Y-DNA with everyone else. As of right now, familytreedna.com is the largest company out there that's testing Y-DNA markers. And right now they're testing up to 700 specific STRs. If you want to learn more about Y-DNA, I suggest you go to YouTube and search for family tree DNA videos. And they have a lot of videos to help you educate yourself on Y-DNA and how it works. So these STR marker values are in general remain constant for many generations, but some mutations do occur over time as expected. It's some things just don't get copied over from father to son quite right, and so those are called mutations, and they're heritable changes that occur in genetic material, which may lead to a different number of repeats of a certain sequence. And we have some areas on the Y-DNA where we have some fast mutations. So a little background on why I got involved with the Y-DNA. I was interested in learning more about my Brown family history since we can only trace it so far back. And I finally found a person online named Kay Owen who was able to convince me that she was my relative on the Brown side. But we wanted to verify that we were indeed genetic cousins. And so her purpose was to find Native American ancestry, but we went ahead and did it in January 2005. After 3 months, we got the results, and lo and behold, we were connected. But it didn't show us that we were Native Americans, but at least we knew we were Browns on genetically. My cousin Kay Owen was in contact with Carol Buswell, who is a genealogist in Washington State. And she received our Y-DNA results, and she compared them with a website called SMGF, which is stands for Sorensen Molecular Genealogical Foundation. It was a company started by a billionaire named James L. Sorensen, and his mission was to unite the world through DNA research and use pedigree charts to establish common ancestry. So not only did he collected DNA data, but he asked those who participated to submit their family trees so that they could find those who are genetically matched and then find where on their family tree that they're connected. And so that got me involved with that database. So I searched my Browns and found a genetic cousin. And so that got me interested in looking at the red side, which is my mother's father's line. So I looked for people with the last name of Red on SMGF, and after entering the correct Y-DNA values, the webpage showed me this. I was stunned to see the names of Rudd and Reed on there, because I thought, well, the only matches they would have is Red, right? Because that's been their surname for many generations. But I found these, and it gave you the option to click on their pedigree. So there's a symbol there. So I did that and saw his tree, but I didn't see any name change there. I see that he went back to North Carolina, but I thought, well, maybe they are genetic match, but it's thousands of years ago or something like that. It's probably along a very distant connection, so I never thought much more about it. So several years went by. I stumbled upon the Red Family Facebook page in 2012, and because I was curious about the identity of Mrs. Whitaker Red Sr. And that's when Jan Garbett got in touch with me, and so she asked me to do some research for her and to transcribe some records, which I did. And then later on, she asked me to attend a genealogy conference and see what research we could find out, dig up on the Reds, and so I did. And I attended that conference with a man named Chris Utley, who's a professional genealogist, and Dr. Mason Red's daughter, Melanie Mayer. So I attended the conference, and they had a half-hour session at the end to talk to a professional genealogist, and I brought the Red book with me, and I showed that in the back we had our family tree. She looked at it, and she took note of the name Whitaker Red, and she told me that it's very possible that Whitaker inherited his personal name from a family surname. And so, hearing that news, I decided to see if you know, if there was any surnames of Whitaker and Red of a couple being married with those two surnames. And then in my research online, I found some postings which one of our Red cousins named Becky Red Minton, she was asking about information about her ancestor, Whitaker Red Sr. and his father, William Red. And then somebody replied named Stan Palmer to say, well, I don't know any Reds that married Whitakers, but there was a John Rudd that married an Avis Whitaker. And when I saw that, well, that they may be onto something. And then when I saw the Rudd name, I went back to the SMGF, and lo and behold, I found out that Marvin Rudd had a family tree that included John Rudd and Avis Whitaker. And seeing that information, you know, it stunned me, but gave me comfort that that I was on the right track. And I shared that information with Jan, and she wanted me to write an article about it, but I had a lot to say, so she ended up doing a summary, and I just posted the article online. And that one thing led to another. Emily Larson, a Red cousin, contacted me after reading it, and she wanted to learn everything she could about DNA and how it worked. Showed that Marvin Rudd was a perfect match to our Reds in the smgf.org website. So Emily took the information I gave her, researched John and Avis, and found out they had a son named William Rudd who went missing for some time after his father's death or just before. And the family put out a newspaper article to find him because he was supposed to inherit some property. And they later find him in Accomack County, Virginia, which is the earliest place we could trace our William Red to. So the fact that we could establish William Rudd living in Accomack County around the 1740s, and then our William Red living there about that same time, we concluded that this William Rudd might very well be William Red. Now, I'm not going to go into the full research that Emily did. You can find that out by watching the YouTube videos on the Red family YouTube page, which link is provided here. We'll see if that is available on our Red webpage. Hopefully it is, but anyway, you can take a snapshot here. That's the link you need to go to access all the videos from 2015, and so there you go. So we end up having Marvin Perry Rudd test his Y-DNA over at Family Tree DNA just to get it in one database with other Reds that tested. So our William Red that we descend from, we knew he came from Nansemond County. And so we have several with the markers numbers of 3741, 338, 508 that descend from him. And we compared that against Marvin Perry Rudd's DNA. And he's, I believe, 85,152, if I'm not mistaken, or actually he's 356,019. And you can see the DNA markers are very similar. There's a few instances where there's differences, especially on this marker, but it's a fast mutator. So, and then if you go to John Paul Red, who is a descendant of John Harrison Red through his grandson, William Alexander Red, and you can see that Marvin Perry Rudd is only 5 markers off at the 111 marker level, which is pretty good. That means it's a very good match because we have another Red cousin that's a descendant of Benjamin Jones Red named Thomas Edway Red, and he matches pretty good. 5 markers difference, but that's still a good range to count them as a match. So we feel confident that we are connected to this John Rudd and Avis Whitaker by this DNA from the Y-DNA. Now, there's other DNA tests out there besides Y-DNA. There's, of course, the Y-DNA on the left-hand side, which is only for males. If a female wants to donate, have a Y-DNA test, she needs a donor, like a brother or cousin that has the surname that she's interested in. The family finder in the middle is the autosomal DNA. That's your 23 chromosomes that makes up your 23 pairs of chromosomes that you receive from your parents. And so you receive half of your chromosomes from your dad and half of them from your mom. Then there's the maternal ancestry, mtDNA, mitochondrial is what that MT stands for. Not just looking on the female side, so from mother to mother to mother. And it's similar to the Y DNA, only it's looking on the mother's side. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about autosomal here. So with autosomal DNA, this gives you a breakdown of how much DNA you inherit from your ancestors. And so starting with your parents, you get half and half. At the grandparent level, you generally receive about a quarter of their DNA makeup. And then at the great, it's 1/8, great great, 1/16, great great great, 1/32, and then 1/64 for the fourth grade. And then at the fifth grade grandparent level, it's 1/128. So being that your genetic makeup is of all these ancestors, there's a good chance that at the fifth grade grandparent level that you may not inherit much at all DNA from them, because you may inherit more DNA from another fifth grade grandparent than others. And then the further you go back, there's some lines that gradually disappear because you just happen not to inherit much of their DNA. So that's why and with autosomal DNA, you want to test your oldest relative, because they can provide clues that will help look at your autosomal DNA much deeper than what you can provide yourself. And so anyway, this is another breakdown of your DNA, the parents, 50-50, grandparents, 25%, at the grade 12. So it just slices itself in half the further you go back. So you're only at 1% at the, let's see, perhaps the third great grandparent level. Yeah, you're about 1% inheriting. And like I said, there's a chance that you may inherit very little of a certain, fourth grade grandparent or even fifth grade grandparent. So anyway, before I get into the autosomal DNA results of Jewel Adams that Paul Red mentioned at the beginning, I want to tell you that there are many autosomal tests out there. There's ancestry.com, there's 23andMe, Family Tree DNA. They all offer autosomal DNA tests. I prefer to use Ancestry because they have, I think, in my opinion, the best tools to compare your DNA with others, and they have a lot of people that contribute their family trees, which is nice. So those of you who are of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints faith, the LDS Church, as some people call it, or the Mormons, you should have a Family Search account that you can sign up for with the help of getting your record number from your ward clerk. So Family Search is free to everyone, but those who are church members, they want to have that record number, because with that, you can access ancestry.com for free, because the church has into a partnership with ancestry.com plus these other names you see on here, because they're sharing their microfilm data with these other companies. And so as a result, church members receive a free subscription. They can access a good portion of all the content there. There's some items that you can't see, but they're very few in number. So this is the web page you need to go to get access to ancestry.com. We'll see if we can make that available to this link here. So that's the end of my PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen of my web page. This is Jewel Adams. Okay, looks like I just have a few more minutes, so I'll see what I can do to get through this. So with the DNA story, that gives you your ethnicity estimate. A lot of people take the test for that reason. And then there's the DNA matches. I'm going to spend a great deal of time on this one. And then there's the through lines feature. Okay. So the through lines helps connect the dots of where your common ancestry is. And I'll show that briefly, but I want to go through these DNA matches real quick, because this is a very important part of this whole presentation. I want you to show you Jewel Adams DNA results. And so with all of the So Jill Adams' DNA is submitted through Ancestry, and it's just a simple saliva test. You just spit into a cup and then you submit it to mail it to ancestry.com, and in a few weeks you get your results. And so anyway, she got these results of her close families. They show up at the top of the page, and then it goes further down, and everything's measured in centimorgans. And so if you're, so it gives you hints here on how they determine how that relationship is determined. They say that 100% it's one of these relationships here. And so Todd happens to be a nephew, and same with Mike. But what you really want to pay attention to is this feature that's called a group feature. So when I've been tagging Jill Adams DNA matches, and so a feature that Ancestry has here is called the group matching, and you could get started by just clicking on. So here's an example where I don't have any groups yet, and so you click on the plus sign and you can add them to a group. And as you can see here, I've got several groups that I've created, and they're all based on a common ancestry. So so if there was a match that had that was tied back to a Chamberlain and Dean, I would mark them as such. So anyway, so what I typically do is I start with Jules. I want to look at all the family trees, the matches that have family trees first, that have common ancestry. And so what I do is I hit this common ancestors button, and it will shrink my list down to where it's only showing those who've got a public link tree and a common ancestor listed. And if I click on John Blickenstaff, I click on this, I'm going to right click. Here it will show that their common ancestors are Lemuel Burton Red and Cynthia Irene Hatch. And here it will show you in the pedigree how that connection works. And so because there's a Red and Hatch, I'm going to create a group, or I'm going to tag this one as Red Hatch, Red/Hatch. Now you can come up with your own system, but this is how I like to do it. Some people like to do the full name of the couple. I like to just do the surname. Ancestry.com lets you do about up to 24 groups. I wish they would give you a lot more, but this is all they'll give you. And so the goal of this is to try to group all the matches. Now, why, you may ask why we're grouping matches, because you want to find out as much as possible where all your cousins connect to you. And the reason why you want to do that is that sometimes you have dead end on your family tree, which we do with the Reds. We only can go far back as John Rudd and Avis Whitaker for sure. We're not sure of where John's parents are from. We know he sailed from England and from Liverpool, but we don't know exactly where. And so what we want to do is compare all of Jules' DNA results and see if we could find a Rudd that lived in England that's got a connection to Jewel. So what I do is I tag all the ones that say common ancestor. And so I've got several groups here. As you can see, I got Red, Chamberlain, Hatch, McClellan, and so forth. And so it's quite a task to tag all these. And so I've asked Jules' family if the Lemuel Burton Red family would be interested in helping me group these matches, and it sounded like they are. And so I'm going to share their Jules account with them so they can help me with this. And I encourage you that are those who are watching this, if you've got ancestry.com DNA results, that you start tagging your results too, because some of you may not have a great grandchild of John Harrison Red that's tested, but you may have a great. There's a small chance you have a link that goes further back than John Rudd and Avis Whitaker, but you just never know what your discoveries can show. And so you want to group all you want to tag all the ones that have common ancestors listed as a leaf. And so later on, when you start, now I want you to tag everybody. Now some of them won't have trees, and so you'll have to do that with the process of elimination. you have to go to the ones that have common ancestors, like Kirsten Adams here. And then if you go to the shared matches part on her page, it'll show you all the ones that Jewel and Kirsten Adams have in common. And you know that all of them, their matches should be red hatch. And so you want to go through the list and make sure that all of them show either they're from the red side, the hatch side, or both. I So what I do is I tag all those, and then I try to go to the most distant ancestor. And so this is where the through lines feature comes in handy. And so some of you may want to see how Jewel is connected to John Rudd and see if there is an autosomal connection. Well, there is. So if I scroll all the way down here, so this lists all her family tree, but it groups them by generation. So I'm going to go to the 5th great grandparent level. Actually, I'm just going to search in the name Rudd, and here's John Rudd and Avis Whitaker. So here we see Jewel Adams being a 6th great grandchild of John Rudd. Now you may ask, well, why aren't other family members shown that tested? It's because she's only 6. This feature of ancestry only goes as far as the 6th great, the 6th cousin level. Sorry, excuse me. The 6th cousin level is as far as it will go. It won't through the through lines feature, you won't be able to find 7th or 8th cousins from a common ancestor. They just don't go that far. Plus, it gets very unreliable after that. Finding genetic match because of the small percentage that a person receives from an ancestor beyond the 5th great grandfather level. And so here we have several matches from different branches of the tree. So we got William's brother James, Elizabeth, and Quatsis apparently. They have enough center mortgage to show that they are matched to Jewel. And so if you click on Pamela Suddarth here, so I put her under the Rudd Whitaker group. So here you can edit if I hit and add edit, and you can assign a color. And so to see how Pamela's connected, you can click on one of those names and it will show how they're connected through their all their ancestry here listed. And so, and then I want to do the shared matches because this will show you that if you look here, because I got some red hatch tags, I got some red Hancock tags. And because I got a lot of red Hancock tags, that's basically telling me that this connection is legitimate and that we do have a solid connection to John Rudd and Avis Whitaker within several generations. And so the time period, the timing of John Rudd and Avis arriving in Virginia, and the fact that our William Rudd was there in Accomack County at the same time as William Rudd, everything seems to fit together DNA wise. Now, as just in closing, I just want to stress that we don't really need any more descendants of John Harrison Red to submit their autosomal DNA or Y-DNA for that matter. We've got plenty to work with. But what we do want is to encourage you to go through tagger matches like I've been doing here with Jules DNA. And I want you to go through and tag them all as much as you can. Some of them you may have to do several shared matches with ones that you know that are related with others you don't have a tree, and try to deduct how they fit in. But if you find somebody that has a tree on there, and so I'm going to try to find this real quick. I'll go to Jules' page. So I've been looking through her matches, and she's got a match on the red side. And I've started it, so here I go. She's got about 127 people linked in her tree. And if you go to her name and shared matches, well, let's see if something shows up here. Anyway, it's taken a while. So anyway, you want to find people that are connected to you, and sometimes their family trees are not complete, but if they've got some red or red names on there, let's have them tested. Let's get their Y-DNA tested. Um, that's the more sure way to find out if they're connected on the red side, because the Y-DNA goes back a lot further than autosomal will ever take you, um, to compare for genetic studies. And um, so anyway, yeah, so just like I'm doing here with Jewel, I mean, there's the public trees. Some of them have unlinked trees. You could, with some luck, you could just click on their tree and they'll have some family tree information there that can help you figure out how to group them. But then you got all the ones that don't have trees, and so I'd leave those last and just use the shared matches feature to try to tag them as best you can, starting with the earliest known ancestor that's tagged in all these matches here, and then working your way back. And sometimes, yeah, with luck, you'll find out how that person's connected. But of course, you want to really concentrate on those who have family trees. So if they've got public link trees, and it's been really slow today. I don't know why. But yeah, it's hung up here. Okay, so back to our page. So it's, look through all the public link trees. We'll have some public link trees in there, of course, but you'll find some that don't have the common ancestor thing here, like this person doesn't have it. And so let me look at that one. Okay, so we don't have a common ancestor linked here, but let's look at the shared matches and see where this person might fall in the family tree. We have a lot of red hatch matches, but we want to go back. We want to see if this is a hatch or red. And look, I got some hatch matches. I've got a red Chamberlain, but it looks like I'm mostly getting hatch McClellan. So this looks like this is mostly a Jewel Adams connection, because you get McClellan in there as well. So I don't know if this red Chamberlain one is tagged right. So this one I might want to just change over to red hatch. So that's what I'll do, is I'll change this from that to red hatch, because I've seen both hatch and red here. Anyway, hopefully that makes sense. I know this is really fast, but just concentrate on the ones that have common matches, common ancestors, and then look through their public link trees and see what you can find, and start starring them, especially if they have the red name, because you could search your matches here. You could hit the search and you could type in, what I usually do is do the surname search. And so you do that and it'll come up with a list of people. Now this is just listing people between Jewel and J and P Jewel, but here, you find one like that. And you'll find some that don't have common ancestor with the leaf there. And so those are the ones you want to concentrate on. And so my goal is to get all of her matches tagged, and then hopefully we could find that common connection in England, because we would definitely want to see if we could find an autosomal connection with the Rudd surname, and then see if we can find a descendant that has the Rudd name. So, if you have neighbors that are surnamed Rudd, ask them to get their Y-DNA tested if they haven't done so, because these efforts will help us expand our family tree in England. And I know with the collective effort of all of us that we can break those barriers eventually. And thanks for your time. And we'll now move on to the panel discussion here. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and my contact information will be available for those who want to get in touch with me and discuss DNA a bit more. So thank you for your time, and have a good afternoon. Bye.